So we'll take this home and read the introduction because I wrote it and I like it. So therefore, but before we get to the chapter, we have to do a mini review, just so we know where we are. Basically, we're talking about where our concern is klippas noga, the klippa that is shiny klippa, because that's what most of the world is made of, and it's mobile. You can raise it up into kedusha, and we gave examples of that you could you could eat food, not just eat food, you could enjoy your food, because that enjoyment will contribute to your learning Torah. Like we gave an example with the fatty meat and the spiced wine, but you're having it because it's expanding your mind, the enjoyment of expanding, or because it's Shabbos or Yom Tov, and it's a mitzvah to enjoy the food on Shabbos and Yom Tov, so you have to have good food to do that. Or we gave another example, telling a joke. So just you enjoy the joke, but what's that helping you? Yeah, but you told the joke at the beginning of a class. I'm sorry, I didn't tell any jokes. I should have told a joke at the beginning of the class. What can I do? So, but telling a joke is in order to elevate the joke because it's opening up the class. And now people are in a good mood. They're not staring at who's this guy talking. You have some sort of affinity because you can tell a joke. So that's one way of bringing things up into Kedusha, raising them up. On the other hand, it's also mobile the other way around. You decide that I'm going to eat this fatty meat and drink this wine. Why? Because I deserve it, I enjoy it, it's good. It totally mindlessly, purposelessly. So a Jew's not supposed to live a purposeless life. That is klippa. If it has no purpose, no meaning, everything has a purpose. The only thing in the world that says, I have no purpose, I have no meaning, is klippa, which is most of the world. Okay, so you're schlepping it down into the three completely tamei klippas because you're saying this has no meaning. And the food is saying, well, I could have had meaning. You decided I have no meaning. The poor animal got shechted, and you're eating it, and the animal is saying, well, for this I died. I died for you to just enjoy yourself. That's it. I thought maybe I'll get on the Shabbos table. You just enjoy. Okay, so then you're schlepping it down. The problem with that, not only you're schlepping it down, but now that energy of the food is now klippa energy, and you are living off of that klippa energy, so it's pulling you down as well. When you pull something down, you go down with it, right? You can't be pulling it down if you're not down. But since it's essentially klippas noga, therefore you can turn it back again. You can say, okay, I just ate that because just to enjoy it. But now, you know what? I'm going to use that energy for doing good things with it. And I'm not going to eat like that again. Now you schlepp it back up and into Kedusha. But a trace of that at the time that you ate it, that's left. Because as soon as you ate it, maybe some of it immediately became metabolized. What happens? You see, this is a question I had in writing. What happens if by the time you decide that you're going to turn yourself around and use this energy for the good, all the energy has been burnt up already? What do you do then? You ate the food gluttonously, you enjoyed it, you had a party, you slept. It's 72 hours later, who knows how much later. You've used up every calorie from it already. So will the tshuva help? Can you still redeem some of that energy? I don't know. So I never got an answer to that. So that's just a question, putting it out there. Okay, so it's possible to pull this up or pull it down, and even once you pull it down, you can pull it back up again. Okay, but then there are things that are forbidden. They're also, they're tied down. So, and he talked about certain activities. He talked about certain sexual relationships that are completely klippa, and that just there's no way to elevate incest or adultery. You can't make that holy. There just is no way. Okay? And so that slaps the person down and it's stuck there. It's not mobile. Because that's the thing with the three, anything that's asa means it's tied down. It is not mobile. We said there's only two possibilities for this to be redeemed. Either we wait till the end of days, when all tumah will be erased, or there was another way.
Amen.
The other way. Anybody remember the other way?
Shuvah.
But not just plain tshuva.
Extreme shuvah.
Extreme tshuva. You gotta do extreme tshuva. Extreme tshuva, which is out of such tremendous great love, that you say, well, how did he come to such tremendous thirst to return to God? How did he come to that? Well, because he sinned. Oh, so the sins are fueling this love. So you just change them over. And I always remember the song that I taught, that you can feel that special love in there. And the tzaddik who said, you could tell from the song that this was a young man who'd been to the gates of hell and back. Some people you could tell from their face, you can tell from his song. So that type of tshuva is harnessing the bad, the negative investment the place that he was at. And because of that, he's able to go to this other extreme now.
But then you say that taking bad and turning it to good could sometimes be stronger than the good by itself.
You're right.
Yeah.
It gets to a place that's higher than a tzaddik, which is the case like with Rabbi Shimon bar Lakish. Why was he such a fiery learner and argued so well? He was taking that energy of being a highway robber or a gangster and turning it towards this.
But just two questions. Like, you don't want to do bad just for the sake of elevating, right?
No, that you can't say, okay, so now I'm going to sin so I can do tshuva afterwards.
Right.
First of all, it's a really, that kind of sin, it's not a real sin. You're going to sin all the way. Don't sin in order to do it. That's not real sinning to begin with. It's not going to give you so much. But besides that, if you really mean it, you wouldn't be able to sin. If your purpose is closeness to God, how can you do something that's going to make yourself so distant? You can't. So you can't do it. So that's why it says that the place where Balei Tshuva said that tzaddik is not capable. He's not capable of getting there. Why not capable? Let him sin, and then afterwards, maybe he'll have a chance. Maybe he'll do tshuva. No, he can't, because he can't do it.
But okay, like, I know we're talking about extremes, but like Lakish, but like, let's say you did a lot of good deeds for the day,
Yeah.
and you're just spent, and you're like, I'm just going to watch Netflix. So it's like, okay, you're not present with God, you're not doing miracles and mitzvahs and all those
So
things.
instead of saying, okay, I'm going to just do Netflix, you say, look, I really want to be learning Torah now. I'm doing something good, but my mind is burnt out. So I need something that will refresh my mind.
Correct.
But that's generally not Netflix. Generally not. Boxing, maybe, go for a jog. But I never found my mind refreshed from watching. And if you really want to burn your mind out, just start scrolling,
Yeah.
So,
But like, there's like a philosophy, like when you work, it's like extreme work, and when you're resting, it's extreme rest.
distraction. Your mind needs just distraction, but there are better ways of distraction, I don't know, something funny. Maybe if it was a comedy, a short comedy or something like that, refreshes your mind. Personally, I like watching like the amazing nature stuff, see animals do amazing things.
Yeah, but then how do you align that? Like, you have to like have a purpose that it has to align with God. So if you watch like the life cycle of a frog, like, do you have to justify like, hey, this is...
Okay, I tell you.
Yeah.
This is the secret of using technology.
Yeah.
Of all of this consumer technology. Don't pick it up, don't touch it until you first determine in your mind, what am I using it for? Because if you don't know what you are using it for,
You're lost.
it certainly does not know what it's using you for.
Good.
All right, well, all of these media, if you are not the user, you are the thing that's being used.
That's a good point.
That's why you don't have to pay to go there, right? Because you are the commodity that's being sold. So you want to know, like, why am I doing this? And if you say, well, I need some refreshment for my mind, well, then you say, what should I do then if it's for refreshment for my mind? And another thing, personally, I know after 9:30 at night, I can't be around this. Once I'm tired, I don't have self-control. I read this somewhere, that people who are self-disciplined stay away from situations that demand self-discipline. You know, like Yosef just ran out of there. You know, so you have to know yourself. I once got so there's this thing that you can have, I can't remember what it's called. But it's not just a filter, but you can choose a buddy who gets a report once a week. So using AI, it looks at what the person's looking at, and if there's anything that looks like not the thing he doesn't want to be looking at, it puts it in the report for you to get. So a guy, it was a student of mine, he decided to put me on there. He didn't even ask me. I started getting these reports, okay? Everything's fine. I know the kid, he's a good kid. I mean, if you're the type of person who uses this, you don't need it. But I don't know. And then one day in the summer, I get this report. This is not good. He's a good kid. What's going on over here? It's not good. What am I going to do? And if I call him, I might embarrass him. But he put me on there. Okay, so I called him. He was waiting for my call. So I asked him, what's happening? And he said, a counselor in camp, and late at night, sitting in my bunk bed, and it's late, and I got my phone there, and that's what I started doing, and I don't have control. So I said, you have a friend there? Yeah, the guy in the bottom. Can you hand him your phone? He'll take your phone for you? I said, yeah. So he did that, and that was his solution. It worked. Just handed his phone to his friend. That's it. It's not in his hands anymore. And his friend said, I'm not going to give it to you. You gave it to me until the morning. If an emergency comes in, his friend will see. So, is somebody at the door?
Someone's
I
trying to
got
get
it.
in.
Yeah, so how did we get to that? I don't know. So we talk about things that are forbidden and the things that get stuck down there, and that's it. And maybe you want to leave it a little open. Hey, Ramon. When you had a buddy who used to come with you, what happened to him?
He ain't come with me.
Let us know.
He used to come. I'm not sure when.
Okay, so now we get to a case of what if it was inadvertent? Not just inadvertent, what if you did something wrong, but you were intending to do something good? And in this case, we're talking about somebody's eating food.
Can you please open it up?
And he thought, but she's a boxer. She's a dangerous lady.
My gloves are on.
It's just the fingers. You give her
No, I have a
exercise
bad
for fingers.
wrist.
This.
Yeah, we'll work on that
Okay,
next.
so let's say you sat down to a meal, you thought it was perfectly kosher, and you ate it. Before you ate it, you said a bracha. You ate it, you had in mind that you were eating this. And you had all the good kavanas. I'm eating it so I have energy to learn Torah, to do mitzvahs. And you said, you got in the zone afterwards, okay, this is the case now. So we want to know, is it still tied down?
Are you on page 179?
It's not you, on page 179. Oh, he didn't print in color for you, you got black and white, I have color.
I stapled it the Hebrew way. It's a little confusing.
Yes.
Stapled
Very
in Hebrew, okay, I'm sorry.
think
I
it's
didn't do
because
it.
he's
Next
not
week we'll-
here, other people do.
By next week, we'll have the whole book before you with color, okay? Um, So this,
I
it's
write-
not you. Engaging in forbidden relations and eating forbidden foods are called asur, because we said asur means tied down, right? Because these activities are tied down. Where are they tied down to? The completely tamei klipot. But when it comes to forbidden foods, these are called asur not only because of what you do and what you do and how you do it, but from another perspective as well. Because even if someone ate some forbidden food unknowingly, eating it for a higher purpose, to use that meal's energy to serve God. And even if he actually carried that out, he spoke Torah and said his prayers with the energy of that meal. Nevertheless, the energy of that meal won't rise from its klippa state to infuse the words of Torah and prayer as would permissible food. Why not? Because that energy itself is asur. It's inherently tied down to the sitra achra of the three tamei klipot. So this guy is now, after his meal, he goes to daven, or he goes to learn. He's saying words of Torah. With what energy is he saying the words of Torah? Well, what happens is the food comes into your system, right? And you have the mitochondria in your cell that convert this stuff to THP, I think it's called, I have it, ATP, okay? And that gets sent to the muscles, and the muscles now can do their constricting and relaxing, and your lips can move, and your body can move and everything. So you're using the energy from that food. So what's the problem? You would think, that means I elevated this food. Because its energy got used for a mitzvah. What's the problem? I did a mitzvah with it.
Even if it's unintentional.
Yeah, I ate this food. I thought it was kosher. I said a bracha. I ate it l'shem shamayim. All great time, okay? But we're saying yes, the food not only that, the food energized, you used that energy for good things. It's not just you ate it with a good intent. You even did that. You did a mitzvah with that energy. So the energy is power, this energy of this stuff is powering this mitzvah that you're doing. So we're saying, but nevertheless, it remains asur. It's tied down.
So then how does a chatat work?
How's a what? Yeah, that's a carbon chatat, yeah.
How do you do
A chatat is a
If you
person
do
ate inadvertently, and then he finds out later, he finds out the food was not kosher. So what does he have to do? He has to bring a carbon
Right.
to the Bet HaMikdash, right? And now that's atoned for, right? But we're not talking about whether he's forgiven or not forgiven. We're talking about what happened to the food. Right? The chicken wants to know. Right? It was a treif chicken, and it wants to know, is it still tied down, or did it get elevated through this? That's serious business. Serious business.
But even if it's not a treif animal, but it wasn't cut like kashrut, like done the right way, it's still considered tied down?
If it was the shchita was an improper shchita, so that's a question. Is it now? It's for sure asur, which means it's tied down to the three clippers, which means once a person eats it, it can't be elevated anymore.
But like eating pork, is that the same gravity as eating a non-kosher chicken? Like, is it like the same?
So there's some isurim that you get this punishment for, some this punishment for, but we're not talking about the person himself. We're talking about what happens to the energy of this food. This is a serious business. You know the story of Baal Shem Tov came with all of Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos, came, called all his Talmidim to get on the wagon. You know how the Baal Shem Tov's wagon works. You get on the wagon, and you turn around, everybody closes their eyes and puts their arms on each other's shoulder, and the horses just go. And within minutes, there is somewhere, who knows where, on the other side of the world, if it's there. So He tells everybody to get in the wagon. It's Saturday night. It's nighttime, but I guess there's a moon up there. And within minutes, they're in front of some cabin somewhere. They get out, and they come in, and the host is delighted to see them. And he's going to shecht a goat, or maybe it was a duck, or something like that. Make a festive meal. And then there's a problem with I think it was the goose. So I said, the goose is a problem with the shchita, with the goose. Anyways, in this home, there was a 14-year-old boy who was lying in a crib. He'd been totally incapacitated since he was a child. Just a moron, just like a vegetable. But he stayed alive all this time, 14 years. Kept him. So they bring this goose to the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov says, show it to the boy. You know, he's supposed to look at the goose and see if it's kosher or not. Show it to the boy. Show it to the boy. Show it to the boy. So they go to the boy. They show it to him. He looks, kosher, and he dies. Okay, they make a levaya, they bury him, they come back and have the goose, however it was. But the Baal Shem Tov explained what happened here. What happened was, there had been a certain Rav who was a big Yirei Shamayim, great Rav. And of course, you know, the job of a Rav in a town was, in those days, woman brought her chicken, a goose, or whatever, and is it kosher, is it not kosher? Well, it was a dangerous job. You know, some of these ladies, you tell them that the chicken's not kosher and it's Erev Shabbos, boy, oh boy, it's a big deal. You know, tell the butcher this cow's not kosher, you know how much money he spent for this cow, and you have to be the Rav. So you have to be a real Yirei Shamayim to be a Rav, to say these things, you know, not afraid of anybody. So this Rav was a big Yirei Shamayim. And but one time, it was like just before Shabbos, he's just coming from the mikveh and it's got to get to shul. And a lady comes to him with a shaila, and maybe it was a goose, who knows? And he just didn't have time to look into it, and it looked like it's most likely not kosher. But you know, if he had more time, he'd look into it and think it through. But he doesn't have time, so he just said, "No, it's just here's a few coins, get another goose for yourself." So he gets to Gan Eden, the heavenly court, and they look through his files and they say, you know, wonderful, very good, but we'd love to put we have a really good place for you, but there's just one thing holding you back. Who is it? What is it? The goose comes in. The goose has a taina on you. The goose says, I died, it was a kosher goose, I could have been sat there at a Shabbos meal, and because of you, I got thrown in the trash. I could have been elevated, it could have been a holy goose, but because of you. So what are we going to do? So they decided that they'll send the goose back, and they'll send him back. But to make sure that he doesn't sin, you know, so keep his record clean, they'll make him a disabled child. And then when it came to the right time, there's the goose, there's the child. He says, now his neshama can go back. So watch out, you know, you can't just throw out something, it's not kosher, throw it out, but it's an animal. It deserves to be elevated. Yeah, so our concern here is not about the person. The person did tshuva, he had the right intent and everything, he'll bring a carbon to the Beis HaMikdash as soon as we build one very soon. But our concern is what's with the energy of this food. Okay, and that really does affect the person after all. Because the energy of this food, even though it got used for this purpose, but that's not the type of energy that it is. It's like forcing a comedian to play a tragic role, or the other way around. It's raw. It's not that type of energy. And eventually that affects the person himself. So this is one thing that I noticed, that so many Baalei Tshuva became vegetarians before they became Baalei Tshuva. I don't know if anybody did statistics on that, but but just an observation, anecdotally, that so many people I saw, when did they start keeping Shabbos and kashrus? After they'd been a vegetarian for a year or so. Because the not kosher food pulls a person down. There's so many stories. So here's a story I have about the heretical milk. It's a well-known story about the Alter Rebbe itself. That's why I put this story, because it's about him himself. So, whatchamacallit? Father-in-law comes with his son-in-law. So the way it was for many hundreds of years in the Jewish world was that if you had any money at all, and you had a daughter, you found a son-in-law who could learn, and then you supported him. It's called caste. You supported him for a year, 2 years, 5 years, generally it was 5 years, for him to just sit and learn while you support him, and he lived in your house. That was the thing. Anybody who had any sort of money wanted to have a son-in-law on caste. It was very important. What do you call it? Establishment in the Jewish world. So this father-in-law comes with the son-in-law who's on caste, and he explains to the Alter Rebbe, "We got a problem over here. He was a good boy. He was learning. I got married in those days. He was 17 years old or so. He was learning. Is good, and then he starts having all these ideas, crazy idea thoughts in his mind, the heretical ideas." So the Alter Rebbe turned to the young man, "Well, what's going on with you?" He says, "I don't want to have these ideas. They're just coming to my mind. All of a sudden, I'm thinking all these things." So the Rebbe goes like this. That was how he usually did it, like this. And then he said, "Who's milking the cow? Where's the milk coming from?" So it turned out that the milk was not Chalav Yisrael, it wasn't being milked by Jews wasn't watching it, and this young man liked to drink milk. So the Alter Rebbe said, "Fix that up, everything will be okay." Which they did. Somebody had to supervise the milking, whatever. Everything was okay after that. But there's so many stories like this. So many stories. So and Chalav Yisrael is rabbinically not allowed. That's all. If it's not, the milking wasn't watched by a Jew, that's rabbinic. It's not min Torah, but it's serious business nevertheless. So it may not have an immediate effect, but the energy of this food is a kind of energy that doesn't mix well with kedusha. So therefore, it's going to cause problems. So that's what he's saying here.
What are you saying about Chalav Yisrael being rabbinically?
The rabbis in the times of Elam and Shammai, they saw that people were drinking milk coming from non-Jewish farms, and that milk often had in it milk, pig's milk, rabbit's milk, camel's milk, that sort of thing. So there were 3 decrees they made. They saw that. They also said that Jews are using olive oil that wasn't necessarily real olive oil. It could be oil that had mixed into it animal fats and things. And they saw that Jews were eating bread that wasn't kosher also. So they made 3 decrees. You can only drink milk that the milking was supervised by a Jew. You could only eat bread that was baked by a Jew, and you could only drink oil that was supervised by Jews. Then, a generation or so later, went to take a look, were these decrees accepted or not? So I saw everywhere Chalav Yisrael had been accepted. Jews had accepted that everywhere. They only drank milk that was supervised, milking was supervised by a Jew. The bread, some communities accepted it, other communities did not. The oil hadn't been accepted anywhere. Jews were still buying their olive oil from wherever. So they said, okay, if the Jews didn't accept it, so that's how the law now stands. The Chalav Yisrael, all Jews have accepted that, so it became a universal law. The bread, if you live in a community that only eats bread baked by a Jew, you have to do that. If you live in a community that does not, you do not have to. Oil, it's just gone. Nobody accepted it, so it's gone. See, the people make the laws. It's part of the requirement of the laws. The people have to accept it. So, but Chalav Yisrael still stands to this day. Now, when Jews came to America, they had a problem. How are you going to get milk? Most of the Jews were living in New York City. How are you going to get milk that you know it was milked by a Jew? So, in the 1950s, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein said that in such a case where you can't, it's impossible to get, so you can rely on the government supervision. The government supervision, that is only. But there was, in Toronto, they wrote to him and asked him, well, we have here, it's available, we can get it. So is it okay, but do we have to? So he said, I'm only talking in a case where you can't get hold of it. So, but then other Rabbanim said, it's only we can rely on the government supervision, but anyways, there's still a thing of Chalav Yisrael that it has to be supervised by Jews, so we get milk. So you can see different types of here. You have a hechsher where it says, "O you dairy," or "O you dairy Chalav Yisrael." So most milk products, kosher milk products, say Chalav Yisrael.
And they cost double.
What?
And they cost double or triple.
You know, I asked, a friend of mine asked about that. Why are the kosher products more expensive? So it's not just adding on, no. It's because Jews don't buy cheap stuff. And so the cheap products, it's not worth it for them to make them kosher because Jews aren't going to buy them anyways.
No, I'm talking about kosher, like kosher yogurt.
Yeah, kosher yogurt is
milk.
high quality yogurt.
Yeah.
It's higher quality than the cheap yogurts.
No, I'm talking about kosher OUD.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's the same price as the higher class non-kosher yogurt.
Okay, but it's still cheaper than the
Okay.
Chalav Yisrael yogurt.
No, the Chalav Yisrael kosher yogurt is not so much more expensive than the premium non-kosher yogurt.
Is the idea behind Chalav Yisrael that it doesn't mix other animals' milk in it? You said
That was originally that the issue was that other animal milk wasn't, but the issue becomes like this now. Once the rabbis say, and the Jewish people accept, that means from this point on, God says, okay, God says, if the rabbis say so, that's the rule. If it has been supervised by a Jew, it's not kosher. That means that milk is now of the 3 Tamei Klippa.
right. but
Because it's
originally
asur, it's asur, right?
originally it
The
was
rabbis changed its status.
But originally it was just because there might be other milk, so it's
Right,
really
not
unlikely
kosher.
that there would be rabbit milk or cow milk.
I mean, that does still
or
happen
camel's
today
milk.
in the Far East or somewhere like
Well,
that.
maybe in the Far East,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
probably
And people
not
are very
in Toronto
mobile,
or New
so,
York.
you know,
Yeah,
but it doesn't, but if we didn't have this explanation of the Alter Rebbe, we would be saying, so what's the big deal? Now there's no pig's milk going in there. Some
rabbits.
say there is, but there's not. You have another problem today, is the cows themselves get all these injections, and the injections often make them treif. They're no longer kosher cows. And the cow is treif, its milk is also treif.
And we'll still get an OUD?
It won't be a Chalav Yisrael.
Right,
They
but
check
it's,
for those things.
but it
Still
can
be
be
OUD, yeah,
OUD?
the OUD doesn't, yeah.
Really?
Still
OUD
is
will,
Yeah, that's another reason for keeping Chalav Yisrael.
So, Rabbi, I know this sounds,
But the point over here is that once it became asur, right, it's an isur. That means that it doesn't matter. It can be pure cow's milk. It's still asur.
so OUD
It's still
can be
tiny.
treif? Wow.
Apparently.
See, that's the difference. When we say, for example, we want to have glatt kosher, all meat is glatt kosher, but then glatt and not glatt. So that's a chumrah, you're taking on a chumrah, this chumrah. But when you're saying not to have milk that's not Chalav Yisrael, it's because you're considering that treif. Those who hold by Chalav Yisrael consider non-Chalav Yisrael to be treif. Those who say, well, only this shechita, not saying the other meat is treif, just saying, I want to be more careful about my meat. Well, with Chalav Yisrael, it's not bad of being more careful. I'm saying, then the other milk is not kosher. It's usher. So that was the point.
Even though it has a hechsher, it's not kosher.
So Moshe Feinstein's heter, if you're going to apply that heter, but it doesn't apply anymore because the kosher milk, Chalav Yisrael milk is available. So his heter doesn't apply anymore. That's the issue. It may apply with butter, because butter, they say you can't make butter from the other animal's milk. So butter might be okay.
Is kosher wine poured by a non-Jew fall in that category?
Oh, no, kosher wine, that was a whole other thing. The Chachamim made an isser on wine.
Idolatry.
Not for idolatry. Idolatry, if the wine was used for idolatrous purpose, then it's Minatorah that it's also. But they said on any wine. Why? For a completely different reason. Because if Jews will drink wine together with non-Jews, they'll intermarry with them. It was completely to avoid intermarriage. Completely. They didn't want Jews and non-Jews drinking together. So therefore, wine that was made by a non-Jew is usher.
But that wouldn't apply only to wine, it would apply to scotch and to beer as well.
Fortunately for you, they made it at a time when people drank wine, and they had a little beer once in a while, but the main thing was wine. Okay, but by the way, the scotch and wine and stuff, they often, the good ones, they put them in barrels that had wine in them before, so they'd have the wine taste to them, and as well as other ingredients. All sorts of strange things go into those liquors nowadays. So we keep on finding other ones, that we thought were kosher that turn out to be not kosher anymore.
Rabbi,
So have a hex on those.
just a quick question. So we're making an assumption, though, that if it's watched by a Jew, they're actually following the rules. Like, isn't it more important? Like, let's say, just theoretically, a non-Jew watches it, but make sure there's no pig's milk or rabbit's milk or whatever, versus potentially a Jew watches it, but maybe he slips up and a rabbit sneaked
So
in.
Today you have to have a mashgiach, and more they're insisting now a mashgiach tamidi. So the mashgiach has to be able to come without any notice, right? Because you can't have a situation where the supervisor says the mashgiach's coming, quick, climb this, that. So mashgiach has to be able to walk in without any notice, and different hashgacha you can trust more that they're doing that. You have all these hashgacha stamps that come from the Far East. You can't trust any of them. The Indians, especially in India, they make up their stempel and put it on.
But it can't be like a non-Jew saying this is kosher and like it came from the cow.
And with
In
restaurants,
America also, they have the K.
right,
They just
random.
the
Put
K
the
was used. The
K
K is useless. Yeah,
Yeah.
K is totally anybody
also
can
on
put a K on
yogurts
it.
and dairy stuff.
Yeah.
But I think if it's OUD,
See, whatchamacallit, with restaurants is a big problem. Restaurants and the butchers as well. So many cases of, because you work in a restaurant, a hotel, it's utter madness in the kitchen. And, a delivery came in, so somebody has to look and check everything in the delivery, but it's chaos going on. Hotels, absolute chaos. And especially if you have an event that's being catered on Shabbos, that's the hardest one. Hardest one to be mashgiach on. And because who wants to be mashgiach on Friday night? Who are you going to get? So, so here we have people that do it, but in a lot of places it's impossible. Okay, so it says over here, the next page.
they
We said,
don't want, and that's why it's more expensive.
so this is unlike kosher food that you can elevate or degrade according to how and why you consume it. The energy of this unkosher food is tied down to sitrach regardless of how and why you eat it. It's a different type of energy altogether that cannot fuse with holiness. So this is true even with food forbidden by rabbinic injunction, like Chalav Yisrael. Since it says, Chamurim divrei sefer miyosim divrei Torah. The instructions of the scribes are taken even more seriously than the instructions of the Torah. So he calls them divrei sofrim. That's the words. They're called divrei sofrim, the words of the scribes. Why are they called sofrim? Scribes. Why are the rabbis who make the injunctions called scribes? Okay, maybe many of them were scribes, and traditionally those were the educated class were the scribes. Okay, fine. Even when everybody wrote, not when everybody read, didn't necessarily weren't able to read. Write. Writing as a common skill is very recent. Even kings, they could read, but they had a scribe to write for them. So, why do we call the rabbis all scribes? The Alter Rebbe gives elsewhere a very interesting explanation. He says the Torah is the blueprint for the world. You've heard that before. The Torah acts as a blueprint for the world. God looks in the Torah and says, according to this Torah, how should the world be? Right? It says in the Torah that you have to say the Shema in the morning when you get up, and at night when you go to sleep. Oh, so therefore, the world has to have a morning, has to have a night. You're going to have to sleep in the night. So, okay, now I know how to make a world. God figures it out by looking in the Torah, so to speak. So since the Torah says this thing is osur, so therefore it is. It's tied down. That's what it says in the Torah. Now along come the rabbis. And the Torah itself says to the rabbis that you have to make fences. You have to keep the Jewish people away from things that are tamei, because you can't just say, well, don't step any further than this, and then you'll fall over. You have to put a fence before that. So that's the job of the rabbi. So they come along and they make certain things awesome.
They build very high fences.
What's that?
They build very high fences. You can't even get to the object
People find ways,
sometimes.
don't worry. So for example, the Torah says that you can't have meat with milk. What about chicken with milk? So Rabbi said, if you're going to have chicken with milk, you're going to end up having meat with milk. No chicken with milk.
Well, that's a good fence.
Okay, that's fair, right?
And then came
You
other
read it.
rabbis and said no fish with milk. Or with cheese.
Well,
No fish with
that's
cheese.
Jews themselves decided, whatever, that it's okay. But imagine if Adam just to put a fence around that tree, everything would have been good, okay? But he didn't put a fence. Okay, so they make fences. So when they make a fence, they're taking the blueprint and they're scribbling into the blueprint some new instructions. The Maharam of Prague, Rabbi Yehuda of Prague, he describes it very interestingly. He says, like, you're looking at the blueprint and you're seeing this thing that you have to build, and you figure that the blueprint doesn't have a door there, but it's obvious that it's a doorway, so it needs a door. So you take your pen and you put in a door so the contractor will know there's a door there. So that's what he says the Sofrim, the rabbis, are doing when they're making these fences. Obviously, God meant in such a situation, this is what has to be done. Look at the blueprint, you can tell. Well, let's put it in so everybody will know it's supposed to be there. So like lighting Shabbos candles before Shabbos comes in. Okay, at a certain point, the rabbi said, you have to have a light in your home. Why? Because if you don't have a light in your home, people are going to be stumbling and tripping over things, and there's going to be a lot of fights. So who knows? It's not going to be nice at home. It's not going to be a pleasant Shabbos. Probably, my guess is you can't really decree that on people and tell them. It must have been that Jews generally did light something before Shabbos, and then at a certain point there was a shortage of olive oil or something. We don't have enough. Let's save money and not have it sit in the dark. And at that point, the rabbi said, no, you have to do it. It became a thing you have to do. But these are things that the rabbis are writing, and once they say it, it becomes part of Torah. And it becomes, just like the rest of the blueprint of Torah, since that's the way it is in Torah, that's the way it is in the world. And how much most of our Judaism today is Rabbinic Judaism. Like Hanukkah and Purim. Wearing a kippah, a minyan, coming to shul every morning, 3 times a day. The Torah just wants you to pray whenever you need. The rabbi said 3 times a day with a minyan. So most of our practice today is rabbinic. But it's based, it emerges out of Torah. But it's like, the way I understand it is like, it's like a living organism. A living organism, when the situation is like this, a certain way, that's the way it goes, and it can go like that for a long time. And then things change. So if it's a healthy organism, it looks into its DNA, says, what do I do in this situation? And it adapts. But it adapts by looking into its repertoire. In my DNA has something I can do with this. And I can adapt now and be like this instead. So the same thing, Judaism has an adaptation mechanism where you're able to have the sages look into the Torah and say, how do we need to organically adapt to this situation? What does Torah say we should be doing in this situation? And then that's the way you go. So it happens all the time. Imagine when electricity started being used. At that point, there was a lot of confusion. Some rabbis said, well, it's not fire, so you can use it. Other rabbis said, no. For whatever different reasons, they found, I don't think we can use this. Eventually, it became the consensus that we don't use electricity on Shabbos. How it happened, it's very difficult to trace, but somehow it became a universal consensus by Klal Yisrael that we don't use electricity on Shabbos, whether because it's fire or for whatever other reason it is. And try to imagine in your mind, if electricity had been permitted on Shabbos, we would have no Shabbos today. 0. If you could get an electric car and go watch a movie and have the television blaring and everybody on their phone, there would be no Shabbos. So somehow the Jewish people knew that no, electricity is not good. And it came up. That's a very, very important decision. So and nobody there. The wind. Anyways, so that's the Jewish adaptation process, and the rabbis are the scribes that are writing that down. And it doesn't just come from rabbis themselves, like you see, it's something the Jewish people accept. The story when Hillel came back from Babel, came to Israel, and they were having an argument. It wasn't an argument, there was a problem, there was a big issue. It was Erev Pesach fell on Shabbos. So you have to get your lambs and kid goats up to the Temple Mount where it's going to be slaughtered. You have to slaughter it, or you slaughter it. People themselves slaughter it in the Kohen. But the problem is to go to Jerusalem, to the Temple Mount, is 2 different rishuyos. You're not allowed to carry things from one place to the other. So they don't have to carry the goat or the lamb, the kid goat or the lamb, but they do have to take the knife. So the question was, what do we do? How do we do this on Erev Shabbos, when Pesach is falling on Shabbos? Erev Shabbos, they have to get their goats there. It's Shabbos. No, Pesach was falling on Sunday. So Erev Shabbos is Erev Pesach. What are we supposed to do? So there's arguments of what they should do, what they can't do. Whether they slaughter it out. No, they can't slaughter it outside. Go there and So Hillel said, let's see what the Jews do tomorrow. If they are not Nevi'im, if they're not prophets, they're the children of prophets. Next morning they saw, what did the Jews do? They took the knife and they weaved it into the hair of the goat. So when the goat was going, it was carrying the knife in its hair, in its wall, and got it there to the Mikdash. So I said, if that's what the Jews do, that's Torah. If they're not prophets, they're the children of prophets. So the consensus of the observant Jewish world and their rabbis together becomes Torah. So minhag Yisrael, if it's a custom, a universal custom of Jews, it's considered Torah. Torah in that way is organic. It grows, adapts. But organic, it's not a thing where we throw something out and now do this instead. It's organic. It's the same organism growing like a tree. Okay, so next week, God willing, we get to this next part about the non-Jewish demon. Wow. And what happens to the Jewish body. Basically, the holiness of the Jewish body is the next section for next week, God willing.
And the week after is Thanksgiving week.
Was Thanksgiving already? Everybody's going to be gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gone the whole of December.
So we'll likely not have something that way. But next week we do. Next week we'll see everybody there. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a good night.
Thank you. Yes, you
Very interesting.